Hello everyone, this is Team Lanner, and welcome to the first part of my character creation tutorial. Before we start, please make sure you've watched the rig release video, as it has a quick overview on all of the rig settings which might be useful down the line. And additionally, this is a tutorial video, but it's more similar to my streams where I walk you through the process instead of giving you like step-by-step lecture. Now, as with most art tutorials, you'll be learning the skills and knowledge, and then you yourself can use these in different ways to make a model that suits your needs. I will be explaining a lot of what I do, but I would say that this whole process is aimed towards a more intermediate user of Blender, so I won't be explaining in the basics. If you've used it for a few months, you should be fine, but if this is your first time using Blender, you will be lost very quickly. So I would recommend you do something like the donut tutorial first. Now, in the bottom left, Blender screencasts all my keystrokes, so if I ever forget to mention something, you can always just find it out down there. Now, without further ado, enjoy. Okay, so here we have our base model, and we're going to be trying to recreate, or at least I am, going to be trying to recreate the character on the left. That is Sue, and that is as an original character I have made. This was a very, very old skin design, and I think that's a great way to start off a tutorial on how to make a model here. So we're going to start with a really simple model, pants, a simple plain shirt. I might make it a hoodie instead because I think a shirt is a little boring, and then some boots, right? And we're also going to do the hair and the ponytail in the back. Okay, with any good model, we always have to start with a sketch. Right? You don't always have to start with a sketch, but it's very useful if you do start with a sketch. Alright, so the basic gist of sketching out your character can be broken down into two reasons. The first reason is it helps flesh out your ideas. If you're able to put everything in your head into a piece of paper, that's good, but mostly you can't do that. So you have to start with a general idea, and then you can use that to visualize how your final product would want to be. Right, and the second reason is you can use the sketch as a guideline, especially if you're able to draw that into Blender directly. It'll help you model your clothes as you can just trace the outline of your sketch instead of like guessing where each vertex needs to be. Now, how do we actually sketch, or what are we looking for when we're sketching, right? So the first thing is you want to focus on the basic shapes and the silhouettes of your model. You don't want to be hyper detailed. You don't want to get every single intricate crease. You just want a general idea of how your character will look. And then during the modeling process, you can then expand, add more details, so on and so forth. And then another thing you want to look for is to make use of different proportions. Proportions is what makes characters interesting, so try to be as creative as possible. You can obviously follow the base body I've given, but if you're creating multiple characters and they all have the same body type, well, it'll all feel repetitive. So don't be afraid to experiment. As long as the height of the character stays the same and the length of the limbs are the same, you won't have any issues with rigging. Again, not too big of an issue, but here we have the basic sketch, you could say. All right, let's go back to object node and let's talk about how I actually model this. Okay, so let's first just focus on the shirt because the shirt's the easiest one usually. I'm going to lower the opacity, lower the thickness too to make it easier to see my actual object. And we're just going to go ahead and add in a. Okay, I'm going to rotate in edit mode by 90 degrees. I'm going to move it up about here. And we're going to start doing things. So one thing I like to do specifically with like the shirt or the sleeves or shoes as well is I like to use mirror. All right, so a quick explanation on how the mirror modifier works is that it will mirror your mesh in any combination of the X, the Y, and or the Z axis, and that's depending on what you choose. The center of the mirror axis will be positioned at your object's origin, but if you decide to use another object as your mirror center, it will use that object's origin as your new center. This is actually really useful if you want to layer different mirror modifiers with different center points. And particularly in this case, it will be very useful when you're designing shoes. So again, let's go back here and start basically outlining our shape. So I'm going to move this forward as well, just so we can see it over the body. So I'm just going to put this somewhere here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Over here. Okay. Now here's a nice thing if you want to snap everything to the center line. Cursor to the sorry, cursor to the world origin. You select these two vertices because you want them to snap to you can say the middle line. You change your pivot point to 3D cursor. My shortcut is D, but you can just do this, right? And then make sure your cursor is in the 3D origin or the world origin. Press S to scale your selection and press X to scale it in the X axis. Press on 0, and now they are aligned to the center of your world origin. Right, we've done that. Next, let's add a little bit of shape. So I'm gonna Control R to loop cut, and I'm just gonna move this out, off up the bottom, make the top a little bit slimmer. Maybe I can add a little bit. Once we're done with that, we're gonna go to the side, select these vertices. Actually, before that, I'm just gonna duplicate, or before, instead of duplicating, I can actually, I'm gonna create a new mirror modifier, and instead of the x-axis, we'll do the y-axis. So we can do this, right? And then we'll just move this closer and closer to about here. And then we can just apply this mirror. Oops, let me just apply this mirror modifier. Now when we go to edit mode, we can see that this has been mirrored. I'll do a little bit of fixing here because you're not supposed to be like that. Go up. Yep, there we go. Perfect. And now what we can do is we can basically just sew the edges, is what I like to describe it as. We select this edge and we select this edge and you press F, it will connect them. And now we just do this for all of these matching edges. So I'm going to go here, this, and there. We have our shirt basically. Okay, now here's some issues, right? Where the body of the model, the base model, will sometimes overlap with your clothes. And a tip I would like to give to people who are modeling clothes is that usually you care about the outermost layer exclusively. You do not care about the base model as much as you care about the outer model. So if your outer model is the exact shape you want, what you need to do is you need to edit your base model to match that. So in my case, because I have like a slimmer like midsection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm just going to shrink this. Yeah, just going to shrink this. Now it looks weird, but I don't care because you cannot see that. Right? Everything that's under the clothes do not matter. If I want, I can literally just delete this if you think about it, right? Let's say I just delete this. Literally nobody cares because you do not know what I just did there. You can't see what I did, right? I think the top, we can do something like this, right? And I'm gonna add another vertex right here just so we can do this. There you go. It's not exactly straight, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take all of these top vertices, size it in the z-axis so they're all aligned. Oh, actually, wait, no. Actually, it's fine. It's fine if they're not aligned. Okay, shade smooth just to remove some of those bumps, and I think in the center I will add a sharp edge just so that we can get this line. And if you want to like pull out just a little bit, we can. So moving on, we'll go with the sleeves. And, the sleeves are pretty simple. Usually what I like to do is I like to just duplicate the arms because, the arms have all the modifiers already. And this will be relevant in the rigging section, but if you don't, if you, decide to model it from scratch, sometimes you have to, right? If you have like a weird, crazy shape you want to do. But if you model it from scratch, like I did with the shirt, you will have to add all of the modifiers, all of the vertex groups in order to actually rig it into the rig. Right? So doing it this way, where you take the base mesh of the body part you're trying making clothes for, you don't have to do all of that. Meaning, if I were to model this in edit, so like if I took this, I duplicated the body and I modeled this as the shirt, that would actually also work. I probably should have told that to you guys before. I apologize. Anyway, let's move on here. So I'm just gonna delete these front ones, delete vertices, and yeah, this is done. That's basically our sleeve model. I'm gonna size it up slightly. Uh, Size it up in the ZY axis a little bit more, then size it up. Okay. And then we're gonna match it to my drawing. About here, duplicate this, size it up, extrude, and move it back a little bit. Okay. That's basically, oh shoot. Subdivision. Oh, okay. This is actually the perfect moment to teach you guys about the subdivision modifier and how it works. So subdivision modifier basically just subdivides your mesh. However, if you decide to use Catmull Clark, it'll also smooth your mesh. So if you look at the extruded part of the sleeves, they turn into like this hexagon thing. That's basically just subdividing and then smoothing out the mesh. Now, sometimes, well, most times actually, this is really useful, especially if you want to make clean bends. However, sometimes this will happen and you don't want that to happen. What you can do is you can simply take the edges you don't want to be smoothed out, but you still want subdivided, and you give them a mean crease. And when I say a mean crease, I mean you have to set their mean crease to 1. Creasing is basically keeping its position. So I want this edge to keep its position. I'll show you what happens if I keep the crease at 0. So basically this edge does not want to keep its position. It will bend towards wherever Blender decides to smooth it. So this is what happens, right? The trousers, I'm just gonna duplicate, rename it as trousers, or I guess it's called pants, right? We're gonna call it pants. Move to the side, done. We're basically done. I'm just gonna remove the top and the bottom. Actually, wait, no, I need the top. So I'll keep the top but remove the bottom. I guess what the one thing I do want is I want a, let's say, crease in the bottom. Kind of like when you roll up the ends of your pants. Let's say I want that. I can just add that real quick, move this up, because there will be shoes in the bottom, right? So I already have a predetermined, so if we go to the customization properties of the rig, there is a foot option, and what this basically does is it just removes a little bit from the bottom, right? And that's just to make space for the shoes. And the way I rig my shoes, because I'm able to move the top and the bottom of the shoe separately, there is a, I guess, foot shape key where I remove the bottom of the foot because that will stick out sometimes, right? So that it also affects, because we, duplicated the actual legs, that will affect this as well. So I'm just gonna quickly go and remove the shape keys from that. And just notice that because the foot or the shoes are designed, well, this is me because I designed it like this, but you can always design it differently. So if I designed the shoes to start over here, then I'm just gonna have to move these all the way up. Maybe a little bit down. This is fine. Right, and then these will be my pants. If I want, I can just delete this because I won't be showing her legs at all. Like this, and we'll just add the shoes below that. But just in case I need it in the future, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to hide it or move it to another collection. And here's an option that you guys might want to know. If you want her sleeves, or well, I guess it could be anything on the arm. So by default, if you decide to copy this, this will follow everything that happens to this. Now, sometimes you might not want the sleeves to go down because it'll cause texture stretching or squashing, and sometimes you don't want that. The solution here is to change the lattice targets. So I have by default put them on arm underscore L, which is the arm lattice. However, we also have a sleeve lattice. What the sleeve lattice is, they're basically an arm lattice, except they do not follow the hand size setting. So except for when you grow the hands, because if the hands outgrow the sleeves, then it doesn't make sense, right? So I made it so that they react whenever the hand grows, but not when the hand shrinks. So here we can simulate the look of like an oversized maybe sweater or something, right? Right, done with that. I think we're gonna add a little bit of thickness to all our clothes. Just add a solidify modifier, simple as that. I'm gonna change the normals for this. So here's another tip for people who didn't know. Whenever you have a solidify modifier, Blender will look at the normal and the thickness or the direction of we look here, right? The direction of the extrusion will be dependent on the normal. In this case, we are extruding it in the opposite direction of the normal. So currently the normals are pointing inwards for our mesh. We want the extrusion to be inward so we can either one, flip the normals with using Shift N, or I think it's Control Shift N for flipping and then Shift N for recalculating, or you can change the offset. The reason we don't change the offset is because you notice that if you notice this face will extrude inwards, but this face will extrude outwards now. That's because they both have different normals. If they both have different normals, you need to recalculate the normal. You do not want to change the offset. But if they're both the same, then you can change the offset. So in this case, we're just going to increase this a little bit, and we're done. Okay, that's the sleeves, and then we're going to go to the shirt as well. Usually you do not want to use even thickness because even thickness can become glitchy when it comes to deformations. So I recommend trying your best not to need the even thickness modifier. Yep. Okay, let's now move on to the shoes. The shoes are, in my opinion, the hardest part to do because shoe modeling is surprisingly difficult, in my opinion. Right, let's try this out. So I like to start from the side and not the front. So let's look at the side. Let's add a cube at the world origin, scale it down, and here's an important part. When you use the mirror modifier here, oh, actually, I'm not actually going to use the mirror modifier here because of reasons. I'm going to do this because I want to put this on the center. I'm going to do that. Okay, now it's in the center. Move this down. There's a reason I don't want to use a mirror modifier to model the shoes, and that's because I want to model the shoes, and then when I finally do hit the mirror modifier, let's say I move this to the center. Oops. Boom. Let's say I modeled my shoes, right? I can then just use the mirror modifier to flip it to the other side. Of course, you can still use the mirror modifier to model your shoes, but I find it, in my opinion, at least for some of these aspects, it's easier to just do it with a cube. So I'm going to start off with just the base shoe, like the base body of the shoe. Let's do this. It's a little high, which I think is fine. I think I'll move it back a bit, actually. That's fine. That one, yeah, that's fine. Right, we'll stay with that. I'm going to move this up, actually, because I'm going to have these pads on the bottom. Center my cursor again. Let's add another cube. Scale it down. Move it here. Okay. One, and also I want to mention that when you're modeling your shoe, it would be nice to keep in the back of your head the size of the pixels. So you don't have to be perfect because when I model, I always model with imperfect pixel densities. However, the closer you are to perfection, the better. However, don't beat yourself if you can't reach that. Okay, now just looking at this, I noticed that we're a little fat, so I'm gonna move this a little back, and I'm gonna move this a little down as well. Okay, and then I'm gonna move it outwards so that they click like that. Okay, and I want to do this thing. Ooh, that's way too forward. It's fine. And I'm gonna have this in the front, and we're gonna okay. Right, according to my sketch, this is supposed to be a little bit lower, so I do this here. Is it okay from the side here? I think it's fine. I can move you back. Add a duplicate here. Let's move this back. Why not? Make this slightly smaller in the x-axis. Okay, and then I'm going to add a slanted part here to go 45 degrees. Move it to the side. And then here I'm going to slide the edge, which is just by pressing G twice, you can slide the edge across another edge so you don't have to be inaccurate with your thing. And then scale it this axis, and we're going to extrude it down. Okay, just noting this, it's already looking really bad, so I'm going to correct this by moving this up. Yeah, you can really see an obvious shape here, which I don't like. I want to break that shape up. I'm likely going to add another cube or square over here so we can break up you can say the outline or the silhouette of the shoes, or maybe raise this up so that it becomes less stubby, or not stubby, but less lanky, because it really is simply too far forward. I think I'm going to fix that by moving this backwards here. Yeah, actually, that is better, definitely better. Oh, here's an idea. I'm gonna cut this in half, actually. Right? Cut this in half. Let me just isolate this. It's gonna delete the face if I can. Boom. Take these two sides. Press F to fill it. Okay. And now I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna duplicate it and move it to the back. And I'm gonna scale it up slight. Actually, you know what? Instead of scaling this up, I'll scale this down because it feels very fat in the front. Because usually when you look at shoes, right, they have this kind of shape where the back is, yeah, you can always say, let's say where's my pen? Here's my pen. Right, so the back of the shoe is like this, right? And then the front of the shoe kind of, becomes that, right? So you can see that this obviously tends towards a point, and we should probably try to replicate that in order to make a good shoe. We're gonna try go for that by just, right, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take uh this, move it forward, and then shrink this down like this. You can also shrink this. This allows us to shrink this one too. And then I'm going to duplicate, move this lower, boom. Okay, slightly better, I would say. I will also move this back a little bit, I think. It's slightly better. I don't know how good it is. I'm going to have to remove you because you guys are being a little annoying. There you go. Okay. This is a little too thin. And I think I want I want this to be further out. I'm going to remove this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that the center part is this. Right? So I'm going to duplicate you, move you up. I'm going to actually from the top bottom, just so I can see. Okay. And then I'm going to go backwards. Yeah, I think this is much better. Yes. Okay. Okay. I like this. I like this. I like the look of this. But this is what it looks like. It has a little issue where the pants are kind of over it, and I don't want that to be the case. So in this case, what I would do is I would just literally just make the legs smaller. As you can see, it works on that, but it doesn't work on this because this does not have that option. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add that option myself by adding a keyframe, or sorry, a shape key. I'm going to press S to change the size. Ooh, here's something very important. If you're deciding to do what I'm doing right now, you always want you. Right. So if you're deciding to do what I'm going to do right here, you want to make sure that when you scale or when you do any kind of changes to your legs, you have to make sure that this specific edge loop is always in this specific position. The reason is, if we go into our lattices, right? If we look at our lattices, it is exactly lined up. Okay, not exactly lined up, but it is almost perfectly lined up with the lattice here. I'm actually just going to line it up perfectly, right? And the reason we line this up perfectly is because of the way we control the bends. If, for example, let's say this specific edge loop is up higher, oh, well, we kind of screwed up our bends. If it's too low, we still screwed up our bends. So you have to make sure that that's always lined up, no matter how you model it. This is very important for both the arms and the legs. So when you guys are modeling it, make sure that you have an edge loop there. That's the basics of how you want to prepare your model for rigging. Obviously, you can always do this after you're done modeling, but it's always nice to prepare the model while you're to prepare the model for rigging while you're still modeling it. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I'm going to add a new shape key where I take this as the center, select everything, go to 3D cursor. Obviously, this doesn't matter anymore because I'm planning on sizing it in everything except the z-axis. Let's make it like really thin. And then I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna copy this driver and just set it here. Bam. So now when I change the leg shrink, it'll be the same. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shrink my legs slightly. Not too much, just slightly. So that what I want to do here, I'm gonna use this as a sort of bridge. Yep, here we go. I'm gonna use this as a sort of bridge to connect the bottom and the top of the shoe. I'm gonna delete only faces. Actually, wait, it might not be smart to delete one. Actually, yeah, it's fine. I'm okay with deleting only those faces. I'm gonna go upwards, and then we're gonna go. I think we go outwards here. Oh, actually, here's another thing I want to do. I want to separate these. Why? Take these two on the side, and I think what I'm going to do instead of doing. So originally the plan was, let's say we have a shoe here, right? I was planning on doing it like this, where it flaps outwards, right? Instead, I have a different idea. Instead, I'm going to flap them inwards. So to show what I want to do, I'm going to scale this outward so it goes out, and we're going to flap it inwards, right? And so what I'm basically trying to do here is, let's say we're going to go from the side. So here's a shoe, right? There's going to be this inside part of the shoe, and then it's going to crease outwards like this. That's what I'm planning on doing here. And then we can remove the insides. Here you can see it. Because I've done this for a few of my models, and I'm going to do it for this model specifically. This backwards. And now when we do a solidify modifier, I have to make sure I remove this because this is already a solid. So we solidify this. Make sure all of the... I think they will have the same one. Yeah, and then we can just do this. Take these two. Scale this down. Oh, there's an issue. Okay, this is okay. There we go. Okay, let's take a look at these guys. Okay, here I'm going to add a cut. Oh, actually no, I'll add two cuts and then I'll delete the middle cut. Done. I'm gonna move you guys outwards, shorten you a little bit. Okay. Another thing I want to do is I don't like how long this flap is, so I'm gonna cut it in half, like right about here. Separate this, and then I'm gonna move this outwards and downwards. I'm gonna move you a tiny bit in, and then I'm gonna move you back. There we go. I can also move it up actually. Yeah, moving it up is not a bad idea. Let's move it up. This, and then we can increase. We can make this go up. I'm gonna delete this side as well because it is not mirrored anymore. And here I'm gonna do a thing where I separate this. So I'm gonna press select all the faces. I'm gonna press P to separate the selection, and then I'm going to mirror modify this specifically. We know the center of our like left shoe is here. So what I did there was I selected the face, Shift S, and then I did cursor to selected. Once you're done with that, I'm going to add an empty object. empty plane axis, right? So this is just a placeholder, and we're gonna go here, and we're gonna set this as our center, as our mirror, and it'll mirror properly. What you can also do is you can just set that as the origin of your mesh. I have it on my quick settings, but if you want to do it, you go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. I've already put this on my quick favorites, so I just press Q and have all my useful stuff in my quick favorites. Right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna move this down, go up, size this a little bit. Is that okay? Maybe I'll add I might add a little bit of rotation here. Yeah, so I'm gonna move it up. And I'm gonna rotate it a little bit. I think this will look good. I'm gonna size it down on the x-axis, and then I'm gonna move you back a little bit. Yep, move you forward. I think this is okay. I'll keep this. Ooh, here's something I do want to change for this. I want to make it so that this is the only. Oh shoot, wrong thing. Faces right. The reason I did that is because I want to put a solidify modifier here. This is very useful for when you do UV unwrapping, right? Because instead, it's always better to UV unwrap a plane than it is to UV unwrap a cube. Cube projection requires you to add seams, and that's just really annoying. So in this case as well, I only want these two, so I'm going to remove these because I could solidify this. Over here, I might delete this center part like that, so it's open. And then let's add some laces to this. So I'm just going to do this via curves. And so I'm just going to add I'll add a Bezier curve. And make the handles almost non-existent because they're not really important for us here. Or not too terribly important. Okay, and also this has to be inside here. Next, we're going to go here. We're going to geometry and extrude them slightly, very slightly. And then we're going to add a solidify on top of that. Can I shade flat? There we go. I'm also going to add a bit of like depth to this by moving this backwards. Backwards is fine. Okay, and I think I should also just make these guys slightly more or like more evenly spaced. It's down. I'm gonna take these two only. Move it down. Rotate it by 45 degrees, I guess, or just whatever this is. Does that work? It doesn't really work very well, but I think it's because I don't have anything on the side for it to connect to. So I'm gonna add that later. Okay, twist it. What I'm doing here is pressing Control T to change the tilt of the curves. This is useful for this specific instance, right? I'm going to take this and I'm going to tilt it upwards. Okay, and then here, I'm just going to duplicate this, move it a bit forward, right? Cut this into a few bits, and move this forward, and then invert selection, delete the faces. Oops. Delete. Oh wait, no, I already have that. Okay, nice. Maybe move this up. Okay. That's better. And then we can do one more because we have this. Yeah, there we go. Not bad. The shoes are pretty good. And I guess we can add one more thing because I just want a little bit of extra design here. We're going to do this. And this will be a sort of It's gonna be the center. I'm gonna show a picture of it right here. So it's gonna be like the center thing here. So I'm gonna draw it as well. It's like if you have a shoe that goes like this, right? We have the centerpiece that goes up, and I really like this. I don't know why, but I really like this thing. So we're gonna add that as well. As for some design, I'm going to do a bit of extrusion here. It's like this, right? Oh, I can do a split, right? It's like this side. Now I see how it's going. Okay, okay. Oh, I can make, so I can like, for example, the design here is I can make like, I guess bunny ears if I want. So that's like a design option. Pretty sure I did this already in a previous preset. And there we have the shoes. Move this back a little bit. There's always edits you have to make here and there, and you can always edit at any time you want. But you know, finishing everything properly in the first in like the first pass is more useful because you know you have to worry about it less. But you can't really expect that to happen all the time. And now, when you look at it, this is pretty good. I'm going to actually try to make this a little bit more thin so it fits inside the shoes. Okay, when you look from the top, it doesn't look too bad, right? And if it does look bad, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the shoe back up, and then I'm just going to move the legs back up, and then scale the shoes to match it accordingly. In this case, I'm going to increase this thickness. It goes in. We have this thing, which, okay, I noticed that this doesn't actually look very good. So I can remove this now, or I could make it a little bit larger so it goes over this if I want. I think that, no, doesn't look good. I'm going to remove it completely. And here is the shoes. I still think that these are too thick, so we're gonna make you even thinner so that you fit inside these shoes, and that's perfect. Okay, cool. So there's that. Oh, here's an idea. What if I rotate it in the other direction? Try this. I think that's slightly better. It's actually slightly better. In fact, what if I just move you away? What if I take you, scale you up, and then rotate you like this? Oops. Do you just look better this way? Yeah, honestly, you do. So I can remove this now. There's always changes you can do at any stage of the design process. Remember that, guys. Move this up because I don't want to see that. This goes up here, and then we can lower this down. Right, that's okay, I think. Yep. No, I think there's the issue where I think her legs are a little bit too, you know, too thin. Let's make it 0.25, and then we're just going to make this larger. 3D cursor. Ooh, actually, I need to convert these into objects. Let's increase it a little bit. Move it back up. Should I do that? No. I'll do those changes later. Move this forward a little bit so it has a feeling of it being tilted. There's this issue where I don't like this issue. Move this forward, I think. And I think I'll do the exact same tilting thing over here. So I'll tilt this like that. And here we tilt it backwards. I think that'll give us like a slight rounded shape, which I do quite enjoy, and it'll allow the legs to be, you know, a bit more round. So not round, but like the legs is, you know, I didn't shrink the legs a lot here, right? So this is the original leg. Originally, we were going to go like this, but I let it be 2.5. By making this more round, I have more I have a larger, it feels like I'm covering a larger area, even though they're still the same size. So I could trick the look. There we go. Just so we can't like see it poke through. And that's perfect. Once we're done with that, I'm gonna hide this. Take all of the things that have mirrors, and I'm just gonna apply the mirror. Apply the mirror. These are good. Actually, in this case, we have a bunch of this, and it looks really messy. So I'll teach you guys how to also clean up your meshes. So let's just take this first, right? Let's take this, and I want to clean this up so that it's a single cube, you could say. What we're gonna do is we're gonna press Alt, and then we're gonna select loops. Select all of this. I'm pressing Alt and Shift. You can see, my key maps here. And then I'm going to press X, and I'm going to dissolve these edges. What this basically does is it preserves the geometry, but melts the edges, vertices, or faces into the current geometry. So I basically just get this, which is exactly what I want. And then I also want to remove everything else, so I'm just going to delete those faces. All right, and we're going to do the exact same thing over and over again for these guys. Okay, everything is simplified now. Let's combine it with this again. And then we just add another solidify modifier. Boom. Okay, everything is done. Now we're going to add another mirror modifier. This time I have to make sure, oops, I have to make sure that you are here. You as well are here. And then I just select all of the shoe areas and give it the same mirror modifier. Oops. Boom. There we go. Now we have two shoes for our character. All right, let's compare with our image source. Yeah, so, I mean, it's not really that difficult. I think I'll add a what do you call this? Like a crest or a collar? Sorry, yeah, I'll add a collar to this. So that's not too difficult. All we're gonna do is we're gonna loop select this, duplicate it, move it up, separate it, and then we're gonna apply the mirror modifier. And then we're gonna go here and we're going to extrude edges. Oh, okay, so doesn't work as well as expected it to be. No, actually, it worked horribly. I'm gonna try it again. Oh no, it's okay. Wait, no. The reason it worked horribly is because we have a solidify modifier. There we go. We remove the solidify modifier, and then we're going to do this. This. Actually, that's a terrible idea. Should have done them like this, so that yeah, there we go. Mm, it looks like this because of the normal, so we're gonna flip the normal so that they're all good, and then we check on it again. Okay, this is fine, but it's way too small. There we go. Now she's got like a. Does this count as a t-shirt? I don't know my clothing articles very well. Maybe we should ask my sister for help. Uh, 0 and then move it backwards so that we have a straight collar in the back. I also want this to be centered. However, actually, I don't even need this to be centered. I can just delete it. And also, I don't like how you're moving inwards, so I'm just gonna move this outwards. There we go. It's still rather thin. I don't like how thin it is, so I'm gonna move this up. I'll make it like follow her neck slightly. I think it's nice. Increase the thickness so it goes and meets that perfectly. Yeah, I think this is fine. I think it's okay if we make this go like this, right? Hmm, I don't know about that, but we'll work with it for now. We can always make changes later. All right, shirt done. And the nice thing about this is, once we have this base mesh, we can actually save this and then reuse this for other projects. So this is nice. I'm actually going to make these a little bit bigger. Wait, that's not the center. Wait, what? There we go. Honestly, nah. I'm just gonna remove it. This is fine. I'm okay with this.